Hello? Is anybody there?
Hello and welcome to room 210. Please come in.
Hello. Come in. Let's gather in together and see what the shadows have to tell us tonight, shall we? Tonight's story comes to us from a young mother, excited for her first child, and how she got more than she bargained for at her baby shower. I was getting ready to have my first child, a little girl. I couldn't wait. When the baby shower came, I got a lot of really nice things, including a complete decorating kit for her nursery. When she was finally born, I realized that all of the toys were waiting for her. All of the furniture was put together and put in place. But for some reason, I hadn't been able to bring myself to actually decorate her nursery. I couldn't figure out exactly why, but for some reason I had just a really dark feeling. So I left it all in the closet. I never thought about it. It never crossed my mind. Until my mother mentioned when my daughter was almost 2 years old that we had never decorated her nursery. She asked if I still had all the things from the shower, and I told her sure. They're in the closet. Why? And she said it would probably be a good time now that she was old enough to appreciate all the pretty pictures and all the pretty little plaques that went with it, that I should put it up. Honestly, I couldn't come up with a good reason why I shouldn't, so we took a day and completely redecorated the nursery. We took all the plaques out and put them together in their groups, and the little pictures, we grouped those together as they went. And in the corner of the room, behind the rocking chair, we put the one picture that seemed out of place. Nothing else seemed to go with it completely, but it was a pretty picture. It had a doorway with steps leading up to it and flower pots on each step with a really nice frame, and the colors were all in the same color family as the other decorations. So it didn't look completely out of place. It just didn't have the same feeling. It didn't quite seem to go with everything. So we brought my daughter in. Her 2-year-old little body just bumbling along. And when she saw all the nice things on her walls, she got excited. She went around the room to each and every one and pointed, made little comments. She said pretty to the little bunny rabbit hanging over the L and the word love above her crib. She said baby baby cute, pointing to the picture of an infant. She marveled at the balloons in their array of pastel colors. The only thing she didn't seem to want to point out or to comment on was the picture in the corner. I have to admit it seemed a little bit odd, but I didn't think anything of it. My mother never seemed to notice it at all, so I figured everything would be fine. As I put her to bed that night, after reading her story, rocking her, and singing her a lullaby, I felt completely safe in laying her down in her crib peacefully. She had nodded off in my arms, and as I looked down on her in her crib, I had not a care in the world. That would change. Sometime between midnight and 1 a.m., I awoke to hear blood-curdling screams coming from my daughter's room. I don't know how to explain it other than to say I was completely outside myself. I couldn't force my eyes open. I couldn't function. I was listening to my daughter scream for her life, and I couldn't move. As I lay there fighting with myself, my husband rolled over and shook me. I told him I would get it in just a second, to just give me a minute. But I still couldn't force my eyes open. And I kept thinking to myself, my daughter's screaming, why am I just laying here? I don't understand. Why am I not terrified? Why can I not move? All I could think was, I have to get up. I couldn't get my eyes open, and I knew I was taking a risk by trying to get to her bedroom without opening my eyes, because her bedroom was right off the top of the stairs. But there was just something telling me I had to move. I pushed myself up off the bed with an extraordinary effort. It was as if I was fighting against 6 people trying to hold me down. My body wasn't reacting. My mind wasn't reacting. But my heart felt like it was going to explode. I felt my way along the wall, out to the top of the landing. Once I found the wall at the top of the landing, I felt my way along until I came to her door, still unable to open my eyes. As I started into her bedroom, pitch black behind the shades of my own eyelids, over my left shoulder, I heard the voice of a man. Shut that little bitch up. I stopped, dead in my tracks, not knowing if what I was hearing was actually in the room or in my head. Over my right shoulder, I heard the voice of a female laughing. almost maniacally. Yeah, hit her. That always worked before. As they talked back and forth between each other behind me, I felt myself moving forward, though I don't know how. I myself was too terrified to move, but somehow my body was moving. It was as if I had no control. They said awful things, horrible things. My heart was scared, but my body and my mind were still just as dead as they had been when I first heard her scream. Now that I was so close to her, close enough till I could almost feel her breath exhaling out as she screamed, I listened to the voices. The things they were saying raised the hair up on me, from my head to my toe. I didn't know what to do. I was completely trapped inside my own body and unable to react. Then they started to chant behind me, him saying, hit her hard, and her laughing, saying, yes, yes, do it now. The two of them repeating these things over and over. Suddenly I felt my right hand move up over my head. As my hand started through the air to come down and strike my daughter, my eyes flew open. I came fully awake, and I grabbed her, clutched her to my chest, and ran. As I spun around to sprint out her bedroom door, I could feel something surge toward me from the room. I ran across the landing and back into my bedroom, my daughter still clutched to my chest. A fear unlike anything I had ever felt gripped me, as I could feel something coming toward me, toward my back. As I neared the foot of the bed, I literally jumped up onto the bed and rolled. My daughter clutched to me and sandwiched her between myself and my husband. Me jumping onto the bed awoke him, but he was too startled to jump up. So our daughter remained sandwiched between us. Just as I got her fully covered, and there was no part of her little body that it could reach, something hit me in my back. It fully knocked the breath out of me. My husband jumped up out of the bed, recovering from his startlement, screaming at the top of his lungs, asking me what the hell I thought I was doing. When I didn't answer, he walked across the room and flipped on the lights. It was then that he could see I was desperately trying to catch my breath. His face turned pale. He asked me what was wrong and ran over to the side of the bed. When I could breathe again, I told him what had happened, and I told him why I couldn't speak and why I had lost my breath. It was then that he took our daughter from my arms and checked her over. She was completely unharmed, terrified, but unharmed. He made me lift my nightshirt and turn around, and there, in the middle of my back, across my spine, was the huge print of a fist, purple and already starting to turn black from the hit that had knocked the breath out of me. He walked me over to the mirror so that I could see the mark, and I started to cry. If it had hit my daughter as hard as it hit me, I'm sure it would have killed her. But I had no idea what this thing was or where it had come from. Over the next 2 weeks, this would become a nightly ritual. Both me and my daughter were worn down from lack of sleep. And finally, my mother decided it was time we should try to see if my daughter could tell us anything at all that would help us find where this thing was hiding before it had done any further damage. As we questioned my daughter in her room, which at this point she was terrified to go into, we had talked her into going in during the day and tried to question her as to where she saw this little girl she kept talking about. Apparently, what sounded to me like a man and a woman was manifesting to her as a little girl. We went around the room, we checked in the closet, but there was one corner of the room she would not enter. And when I asked her why, she pointed at the picture of the steps and the flower pots with the door and said, "Little girl lived there. Little girl mean." My blood ran cold. I didn't know what to do. My mother asked her again, where did the little girl live? And she pointed again to the same picture and said, "Little girl lived there. Little girl mean." We decided to be sure. So we agreed that the next day my mother would take her to her house to play for a while. And while they were there, I would take the picture down and I would put it someplace where it was impossible for my daughter to know where it was, and see if it really was the picture or if we needed to be looking for something else. The next day, she played at her nanny's house all day long, and while she was gone, I completely cleared out a closet downstairs, put the picture against the back wall on the ground, and packed everything back in on it. I was the only person who knew where that picture was. I waited for her to fall asleep that night and put her to bed back in her crib as always. And again, I was woken up by her screams, as I had been for the past 2 weeks. When my mother came down the next day, we asked my daughter why she had woken up screaming, and she again said, "Little girl." I asked her, "Where is the little girl?" But instead of answering the question, her perfect little round face looked up at me and said, "Little girl mad." I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. My mother asked her why the little girl was mad, and she said, "Little girl will not stay in the closet." I was in tears, absolutely terrified. My mother asked my daughter what closet she was in. Without hesitation, my daughter went to the very closet that the picture was in. She knew exactly where the picture was. That day, my mother removed the picture from my home. She took it home, and after sunset, she destroyed it. And the little girl never came back. I called my mother-in-law to ask her where the picture had come from, as it had come from one of her best friends that had come to the baby shower. And she told me that while they were shopping for the baby shower, they had picked the picture up at Walmart because it matched so well with the colors of the other nursery decorations. Of all the places that such a dark and cruel evil could have come from, it came from a picture bought at Walmart for a baby shower. Did one Rutland here saying thanks for stopping by and spending a little time by the fireplace with us here in room 210. Oh yeah, never forget that you can never be truly sure what really hides in the shadows.
Please